Oh, our son, Kanye West. Kanye
Hey,
West.
yay.
We talked about Kanye not too long ago. He put out his apology little letter in the New York Times, I believe. And we
hmm
talked a lot about that whole apology and all that. So it's a lot going on. Just to give the real quick context, he had, I believe, this is a headline. I'm tell you, this is a headline. I read some, but I didn't read enough. So I'm gonna label this as a headline reaction. He did his SoFi. He did 2 days back to back in
hmm
SoFi. Um, and the reported rumor is that he made like 33 million.
hmm
But he did that, and then he was trying to go off into the wireless festival, I believe, in the UK. The UK blocked him from coming there, and so because a lot of sponsors were dropping out.
Yeah, a lot of
But
sponsors dropped out. And that just shows you that sometimes press can't move fast enough because I can guarantee we know how these folks operate. It's all about the dollar. Had they heard that $33 million figure earlier,
right,
they
so,
wouldn't have dropped shit. He made what in
so
2 days? Oh yeah, bring his ass over here.
so we'll get to all that, but this all started with the apology, this whole trying to redo his image.
hmm
There's a lot of uh, popular, I'll say, Jewish people who came out and be like, "We still condemn Kanye. We not going for that." But his
I can go for that. No, sorry.
his LA show was so popular.
mm
Obviously in LA, so a lot of stars were there. It's a lot on social media about it. And before Wireless dropped him from the festival, a lot of people was talking about how he canceled cancel culture. That's how they were saying. But then that nigga got canceled. So it's a lot going on with Kanye, but
But this is my thing about people like, I think he's formally Ye now. He went to the courts, y'all. This is my
yeah,
thing
yeah.
about Ye, Kanye, Ye. Is did he get canceled or did he choose to sit down? Anytime, there's been several times where Kanye has been reportedly been canceled and then he drops something or do something and he's got a nice train size, bandwagon. He's got a pretty large fan base, whether the companies like it or not. You know what I mean? He became a billionaire selling clothes that look like homeless people shit. Like with Yeezy and stuff like that. And I think maybe Adidas was the only one who had just made their deal with him. So they had a big loss because they had just made this deal before the controversial anti-Semitic comments and
Hmm.
stuff. But for those other companies, they dropped them, but they were okay because they had already made their money. You know what I mean? So I think that what with situations like this that get on my nerve is more so these companies acting like they have a conscience. Y'all don't. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
all of this dropping people business just to save face in the media. I wish these companies would just be honest about how money grubbing and like y'all really don't give a fuck. Stop putting on that act. Y'all
I
don't
know they
care.
amoral.
You
They
know,
amoral. Whatever makes money.
I get so tired of that. But yeah, this guy, he's known for taking his breaks and then coming back with a boom and doing some things, and his fan base always comes back out. He makes his money, does his thing, whatever it is. There's a lot of people, who respect his craft, no matter how crazy or the things he says or do. But we are also re-entering. We are like exiting cancel culture, and we're exiting we're almost at its exit. Basically, we are back to comedians saying, what they want, and not trying to worry about if a punchline is going to get their career ended. A lot of people are saying now, fuck that, this is the craft, whether you like it or not, either listen or don't. You have a lot of retaliation and pushback on certain styles of cancel culture. People are kind of fed up with it, because I think at the end of the day, especially in a climate like this where we're all like one paycheck from killing somebody, I mean, let's just be honest, people are like, why are we getting mad about this stupid ass shit? It's irrelevant. The being angry for the stuff that we've been angry for in the past, when cancel culture at its height, it just doesn't matter in an economy like we're living in right now. Everybody is looking for a little piece of joy here and there, and we're not really caring about that shit at this point as a society. So all of the little fugazi stuff, nobody cares anymore. That's why there's so many people online who are saying, anti-Semitic stuff or anti-Muslim stuff, anti-LGBTQ stuff, anti-black, anti-white, whatever the fuck right now, and getting a lot of followers and doing a lot of things because they're looked at as brave kicking against, what people felt like was a silencing,
Right.
I can't be silenced. You're not going to tell me what I can and cannot say, and blah, 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 blah. Because when niggas is broke and niggas is hungry, and niggas is everybody at this point, I'm not talking about just black folks. This is the whole world. When everybody's broke and hungry together, the last thing they're going to want is their voice taken, because that's all they have left. When you got most of your society living paycheck to paycheck, the last thing you're going to take is somebody's voice. And that's what I'm thinking that we're seeing right now, is that people are like, fuck that. If I'm I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, and it's gonna be whatever. It could be something positive, it could be something negative, but they gonna say it because that's all they got right now.
Niggas is the disenfranchised. That's what it means. But look, me, man, for me with Kanye, like, it's this weird space because, and we'll talk about some of this later, but he really grabbed onto the anti-Jewish thing. But at the same time, I see a lot of people bring up, like, I kind of get what he was saying. He didn't say it right, but I get it. And it's like, can we look past it? I'm like, everybody skipping over the slavery was a choice. Everybody skipping over the endorsing MAGA. Everybody skipping over all the anti-black stuff he did.
Talk about it.
to sit here and excuse all the anti-Jewish stuff he did. And I get that. And I think with Kanye, with LeBron, with a lot of this, I've said before, the last year, 2025, I learned a lot, and even before that, like, in terms of relationship talk, my last relationship, I learned a lot about resentment and projection. And today, I want to talk about resentment. This is what's been building up. Like, and again, our next topic, we'll talk a lot more about the Jewish stuff, but whatever you take in, there's a thought amongst black people and some other people about the Jewish community. And so what he said was that's not a question. He went full Nazi, Hail Hitler. He did the most.
Oh yeah, it was definitely that. What he said, it actually can be classified as anti-Semitic. Yes.
But then you look at Kyrie Irving, you look at anybody, I think Nick Cannon got caught up in that, and he's MAGA, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So is there a connection with that, racism and things? But at the same time, a lot of people okay that because resentment. The biggest example is Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle called flack for two reasons. He talked about the trans community and the rights that they were able to get. And he also mentions the Jewish community too on the offset. It's not and a lot of people, me included, you could say if you did it or not, but a lot of people understood what Dave was saying. They felt it and they protected him because they knew what he was trying to say, even if it wasn't said in the best light. But at the end of the day, what he's saying is, no matter what we talk about, when you're black, we don't get that type of leverage. Now, a white man could say, I identify as a trans woman in transition, and they can push the needle. A Jewish person can say, that's anti-Semitic, and push the needle. Whether it's the collective community they have and all that, or whether it's just the protection of the complexion for the collection, we're pointing out we do not have that type of momentum as black people. What is black trans? What is black men? What is black women? We don't have
black upper echelon, no matter what black it is.
We don't have that. We don't have that momentum.
Yeah.
And it's not it's a commentary on society, but more so what people, and I don't even think black people understand, it's a resentment. It's a resentment that you can become this trans community and advance way past that what we did in human rights in a shorter amount of time than we did
doing
as a
it
whole
while
black
standing
race.
On our shoulders, you know.
Yeah, you quote Martin Luther King.
All of the laws that are being changed were the laws that we originally lost our lives and fought for in order for you to upgrade that law to better benefit your different communities. I fully agree with the resentment thing. Dr. Henry Louis Gates, I implore people to go and take a gander, recently did a documentary called Black and Jewish in America and Interwoven History that kind of talks on that dichotomy and that intermingling of our communities and our relations with each other. But we have quite an interesting relation with the Jewish community. But we went from almost being equaled and disenfranchised at the same time to the white elite realizing that they don't have a large enough population to deciding to Pokemon certain communities into whiteness. And then we saw this upward mobility come to many communities who used to stand side by side with us. So we went from Irish, Italians, Irish, Jewish,
Asian,
recently Asian, especially when it comes to like the medical fields and stuff like that. So we saw these communities who used to stand and fight side by side with us, who were disenfranchised and hated collectively for just being something. Jewish people a lot of times get a lot of flack just for being Jewish, that type of hatred and stuff. And so we had a common understanding amongst our communities about what it is to just fight for your regular old being of just self. But the layering of the relationship switches when that upward mobility came and their communal tactics to buy property, buy businesses, create certain things. So there was a lot of Jewish people who were the first music execs to allow Black folks into their studios and stuff like that. So it was like, you gave a few of us upward mobility through the music industry, through the athletic owning associations, through housing and stuff like that, where they're coming up. They were kind of like some of the first landlords to give us housing and stuff like that. They would buy houses and, allow Black folks to move in. But what happens and that resentment comes in is that you first lend out your hand, and then it almost feels like you leave us in the dust. And there's this harsh reality for Black folks in our communities who have a certain view of Jewish people because there's many Jewish people who may be their landlords or something. or and they're living in these buildings that might be viewed as run down, or they might be viewed as being owned by a slumlord, or they're not being as attentive. They own so many portfolios they don't even remember the little building they got it on the south side of Chicago, or blah 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 blah. Their upward mobility was a blessing for them, and it created these beautiful portfolios, but they kind of forgot about the smaller parts of their portfolios that now serve as our houses, or our this, or our that. So when you hear Black youth and people who are young adults that are Black agreeing with certain comments, it comes from that relationship. That fact that that their building owner for their business is Jewish, or the building owner for their housing is Jewish, and they feel like it's not tended to in a way because you just keep it long enough until it's worth something for gentrification, and then you sell it off and you make your money, but we're always on the ass end of that. So there's this really rough relationship of like us feeling for them because we know what it is to be attacked just for being something. And so we stand side by side with them and say, hey, that ain't right. But then at the same time, it's like, hold on, but you supposed to be my brother, and you doing some of the same shit that these people are doing. It's a hard view. So there are going to be these kind of tougher conversations where we have our intermingling of communities is layered, very, very layered, and there's going to be some diversity that's positive and some diversity that's negative about some of the viewpoints that have come out of that layering of our communities being around each other for so long.
And I would also argue is we move past layers. Mm-hmm. We move past layers to opposition because just like you said, like it might have started off as solidarity, but eventually, just like the Italians, just like any other people, and people always talk about why is it black and white? Because black and white was the law. You was either black or you were white. There was no other thing. And so as people became white, they'll step on the black community, quote unquote, because that's what's going to get me to move up. And so Jewish and Black people might have shared some of that commonality. Eventually, over time, you surpassed us in status, and you started to get to that exploitative. I don't even know if that's a word, but you started being explicit with what you was doing with us. And so that becomes the tension because we might have been side by side. You become the landlord, then you become the property owner, then you become the HOA, then you become the mayor, then you become whatever it is. And now we got a different dynamic than what we had before. So I think in my personal opinion, like as you said, as we get a younger generation, that's kind of all they know. They don't know.
Right. They don't know the history of, you talk to a Black elder, they'll have a little bit more respect about the conversation because they were out there marching with these people, you know what I mean? Or they were doing sit-ins with these people. There was a lot of Jewish youth who were part of the sit-ins and a part of, so their relationships and understanding is a bit different. But like I said, when you have modern day, like your millennials, your younger Gen Xers and your millennials, our relationship with that population is a certain viewpoint. They have been an unattainable generation for us. They have always have had the stereotypical, they own everything, they're at the top of everything. They've always been a part of the elite for our generation for the most part. So our viewing of them is sparse when it comes to like their struggle. We weren't here for their struggle. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or we were very young at the tail end of their struggle before they kind of picked up into the status that they are as a community, standing together. So it's tough, but at the same time, my gripe with that is knowing that that the relationships are layered and stuff like that. Stop coming at people for just telling their truth. That's my only frustration. Everything is not anti-Semitic. Then when that is somebody's reality, except when it's somebody's reality, and except when it's actually anti-Semitic. Do the digging before you bury somebody's career. Or not. We're not talking about people like Ye, but like regular people, or even the Kyrie situation when it was like religious based. Whatever somebody is on their journey of basically don't become the very people you were just fighting. And that's where a lot of times the conversation gets upset, because it's like, you of all people should know, don't do it like that. But that's, a lot of people feel that's what happens, and it's unfortunate, but i.e. like you said, Dave and a lot of people had people to back them, and apparently Ye too, who are willing to still, support these artists, even if they have those moments where they make these comments that are very distasteful. Because unfortunately, the layering are at this time for people's realities is augmented to a certain, frame. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, guys.
No, I think at the end of the day, like, again, there's this certain resentment, whether we tie it back to LeBron and all that. Like, some people will be like, why does it matter that he's with a bunch of white people? Why does this matter, that matter? Like, that stuff matters because those communities have a power that we don't have. Mm-hmm. And there's resentment towards it, but there's also a protection of not giving them ammo to add to whatever slights that we felt like that, we've been receiving. And with Kanye, I mean, again, it could be seen as anti-Semite to point out that the powers that be froze him out of this festival coming up, but it's the truth. Like, you got multiple celebrities that are identify as Jewish or whatever, and they talk about it, and then you got people that are head of companies and they start pulling out the festival. And it does come down to money, and it comes down to capitalism in a lot of ways, but they said, we're not going to support this because of him. And then the festival end up dropping Kanye because we're not trying to lose all that money. So this idea of saying, oh, Jewish people are powerful, you get shut down. And this idea of, any of that, I get it. I get why you want to shut that type of stuff down.
But I mean, like, they have to see it from the point of view from every other culture. As a world international view, it is absolutely quite interesting to see one community that can, like, they have to understand why the lore of their community is viewed in such high regard of or why people really think that as a community they can just like shut somebody's career down, like blah blah blah, whatever the lore is, when the whole world has taken on this ideology. When you have every podcast and every video and every little small TikToker, no matter what country it is, monitoring what they say with hopes that they're not the next ones to get got, whether it's a joke or not. The fact that the whole world, it's not even that it's an American thing. The whole world, like, hey, you better be careful, bro. They gonna shut our shit down. that's, you have to understand that lore, and that's what's going to come behind that, and just accept it as that lore. Like, stop getting actual mad about, I mean, because at the end of the day, there obviously is something going on where the whole world feels like this community has a great power source, whether it's through the whatever it is. But like, if it's just lore, then why y'all, like, stop getting big mad then. If it's just lore, if it's not true, if it's not this, what they say, a hit dog barks. If you ain't get hit, don't bark. That's just
gonna holler. Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people are at. It's just stereotype, and the fact that real careers are getting canceled over stereotypes, or the acknowledgement of stereotypes, is why people are like, it's got to be real.
No, I agree with you. Like, again, at least me, I want to point out say the quiet part out loud, but at the end of the day, like, real moves is being made, and I get it. Like, I don't know, because I didn't understand it, and I probably still don't fully, but even early on, where it was just like, I think it was Nick Cannon and other people, like, Jews control the bank, and they canceled, like, bro, you can't say that, like, and it was like, bro, what's going on? Why is that? And Jewish people was hella offended, and I had to understand, like, the whole lineage. And as a black person, I get it. Like blackface. With Drewski, we talk about all the time, whiteface, blackface. There's a lineage that makes it important. But at the same time, we do gotta recognize objective facts. Like, this person's ahead of this. This person's ahead of this. This person's ahead of this. Like, so I get it.
That's really, I think that's just the real conversation everybody wants to acknowledge. Yeah, there are people who are out here saying distasteful things about this community, but please also acknowledge that y'all got it. Like, community to community, exec to exec, CEO to CEO, country leader to country leader. Y'all got it. Like, and that's okay.
And my thing is,
like, y'all don't.
Right. My thing is, if you came out and was like, oh yeah, we here, we running this, people wouldn't be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe y'all did. They would just say, like, okay, they really got this on lock. Like, how can we get like them? Like, it's
honestly,
it's a resentment of what y'all doing. It's not necessarily like a disgust that y'all are the ones doing it. It could be anybody. It's just like, our community does not have that social mobility. We don't have that career mobility. We don't have that power. We don't have that political power to do those things. So that's yeah. So that's that. We gonna get into the manosphere real quick. So,
oh God.
We're a little late.